Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm playing Kathy.
Hi, I'm Peter and I'm playing Jamie.
Hi, I'm Livy and I'm the MD.
So we'd obviously have like a few rehearsals in the run-up to recording a song. Normally, like I'd have like one big rehearsal where we just sort of run through all of the music in one go, and it was like 2 or 3 hours long and really, really exhausting, but also a lot of fun, I will say. And then like a few days later, when it would come to approaching recording a song, we'd have one rehearsal where we just like focus on that, and then I go away and try and record it. And I've been using this little dictaphone thing here, which normally people would use it for like recording lectures and things so they can listen back to them, but we've been using it to record singing. Apparently you can do that and it doesn't sound terrible thanks to Livy's handiwork. So yeah, that's been quite cool. Because I just didn't know that I had the resources to be able to even try and do this before we started. And so like I feel like in many ways you can always do more with the resources that you have than you think you can, and that's been a really cool part of this experience.
I didn't even have like a dictaphone or anything. I just used my phone. And at first I was really worried that it was, well, I started doing it on my laptop because I was thinking it was going to be better, and it completely wasn't.
I think we've been really lucky with kind of the resources. Well, not the resources, because it seems like anything could work in this scenario. But we've been lucky in that you guys sent through the first takes and I basically went, oh, thank God. Okay, we can do this. You know, we had a few tests and stuff, but it's definitely been a learning curve. Oh, I've said that again. But we have learned along the way as we go. We've all developed new skills about how to record and things. I realised about 5 days in that you were recording at different sample rates. I didn't know what that was. I had barely touched Logic before this point. You know, I was just there kind of going, oh, what's that like? And then I tried to put your voices into the same track and it just crashed. And I was like, okay, that's not good.
We've had it quite easy compared to you having to like compile everything together, and like we've just kind of like done this and then sent it off and like hope for the best, where you've actually had to, you know, deal with the hard part of that.
And then recording as well, I've had to make tempo decisions, which I don't like doing. And I've fought with myself about what it's supposed to be, because in a show you would just do it. You know, you'd have a rough idea of kind of how it would work, and you would, you know, I've got a broad sense of where I'd want it to be, but I've never had to pinpoint so precisely actually what it is. And then send it over to you guys and have you record. And then we've talked about the recording documents a little bit, but I had to create these kind of how-to guide, first of all, being like, please put your recording device in the same place every time so that I don't have a meltdown, and stuff like that. And but then also how to split up the track so that we could have takes that would be malleable to the timing that you wanted it to be, I guess. So it was a lot of things to figure out, and I'm sure there was an easier way to have done it that I will think of in 6 months and kick myself, being like, this would have made life so much easier. But, you know, it's the way that we've chosen to do it. And it's worked. You know, we've come up with we've ended up with a really good thing.
Ooh, that is a tricky question. Like, I was looking forward to getting the stamina to be able to do like a show run, even though it's like a very like a relatively short run. Like, I was looking forward to doing that, but also it was nice having like days in between, because if I was doing so many takes, because I was being, you know, picky about how it was sounding, I could do up to like 20 takes of a song, which you would. And if you're like doing it for this kind of you want it to sound like at your full voice, and if you're doing that for, I don't know, 2 hours, it is going to be quite hard on your voice. And like the next day I would wake up with the sore throat and be like, okay, calm down. Like, yeah. So I think that isn't really an answer to that question, but opinion.
Yeah, I have to admit I was quite nervous at first. I was like, damn, A, this is some really hard music, and B, it's definitely getting there to the top end of my range. Like, I was quite nervous about some of the really high notes, like the B flat and stuff.
You got it though.
Just yeah, and I think doing that for, what was it, 4 or 5 shows in a row, that would have been quite intense. Just because like I've never done quite such an intense show. Like, so to do it 5 times in a row and try and really nail it every time would be quite hard on my voice, yeah. So I was quite nervous about that. But so in some ways it does take some pressure off, because you can like make it so that like you're recording, you're happy with it, like you're happy with the way that your voice is sounding as best as you can be. Like I'm still not, but the freedom to record alone means that I'm kind of feel comfortable enough to try things that I wouldn't necessarily try otherwise. And if it doesn't work, then no one else has to hear it, and that's great because I can do whatever the hell I want and not have to care. So then I only send the ones that I'm even remotely happy with you hearing.
I've, you know, previously like love having the kind of audience response, like that's, or like being in a presence of an audience, and that's like my purpose of performance, if that makes sense. And like not having that at first was very hard to get used to, because it either meant that I was being quite like lackluster in the way I was doing it, or just not as so it was having to get that same energy as I would if I was doing it as a live performance, as a recording, and not like trying to get over the fact that I'm in, you know, a little room in my attic singing to myself, and like trying out like lots of different things, like thinking, yeah, I found that difficult at first, but then I got into it, and by the end I actually enjoyed it a lot more, because it did give me that sense of freedom to explore the music a lot more. And like, yeah,
I think obviously I'm not doing the recording except for when I'm playing keys. But watching your voices change even throughout these 3 weeks that we had an immense session going on, it's been really interesting because they've come on so much. But it's just to look at the progression and look at the first ones that we filmed and recorded towards the last ones, and I can just hear a change. And it's not in a kind of, there's going to be such a difference throughout the show of like, oh well, they obviously filmed that one early. Like, it's not that. You can just hear a slight difference. They've come on so much.
I feel like part of it is also getting used to the process as well, because I felt much more comfortable towards the end actually being on camera doing it, like lip syncing it, than I did at the start. 'Cause at the start I was like, oh, this is kind of weird, I'm just going to give it my best shot. But then towards the end I was like, you know what, I can do this, like let's like give it a really good go. So
Yeah, I think the difference between recording and performance, then, to kind of sum it up, is that you can have off days when you want to record, and that's okay because you can come back and you can sort things. And so that does take the pressure off, because, you know, in a performance, if you've got an off day, then it's just an off day and you've got to power through it and do a performance as well as you can. And I'm sure it'll be great, but it wouldn't be as good as it could be. But that said, the fact that we can go back and manually alter what you hear is terrifying, and too much power for any one person to have.
but also I think the fact that we have done this like so quickly and have had to, you know, get used to seeing this material and everything, and the amount of time we've had to like record and film, there has been something more similar to a performance, in that sense that you can't like dwell on it and you can't spend a whole week on one song. That's me.
I'm going to be brutally honest and say that while I love Jamie's earlier songs, I don't think they're particularly best suited to my voice. I just had to jump in, give them a go and try and enjoy them. But I think I kind of prefer the second half of Jamie's music. Probably my favorite to sing alone would be Nobody Needs to Know, because I think it's just so beautiful and so like kind of simple, but also like in such like a painful way that it's just so heartbreaking, the song itself.
My parts in Next 10 Minutes and Goodbye Until Tomorrow, I just love to sing those. I like, yeah, I just think they're really luscious bits of music. But I think See I'm Smiling, probably.
I've had to do this quite a lot because, again, I haven't had you guys singing with me. So I've had to sing all of them just to make sure that they work at the kind of the speeds that I've been doing it. So I've had to transpose Jamie's songs up 3 semitones to actually make it possible for me to sing. And I think it's Nobody Needs to Know. It just works, and it works really well. And it just uses the vocal range really well, I think. You know, but by transposing it just that limited bit for me to make it so I can sing at the bottom half, it reaches like the peak of my range, and I know that it opens up a really it's one of the parts of your voices that it's got like such a nice quality. So I'm glad that we kind of had that as we did, and it just works.
That's why I said next 10 minutes too, like, because I feel like that's where it sits the nicest, like most comfortably in my range. And yeah,
I am not irritated, but I'm just aware that we recorded my favorite song first. And if I didn't believe in you, and I was like, I'm gonna go in really hard on this song, and like there are so many little bits about it that I just wish I could go back and do differently. But like I think what we've got is a really nice, fairly polished version of the song, and I'm happy with the way that we did it. But it's just you always are thinking, especially with like the big song that you really want to give your all to, like that you just would want to go back and like change it, make it slightly better, like play with it a bit more.
like I did the most stupid thing after I finished recording a part of that, like the final one. I decided to go back and listen to Still Hurting, to literally just as a form of self-torture, and listen to it and think of everything I wanted to change. I was in a very strange mood, and like, yes, there's lots I would do differently now if I was to do that song again. But again, I still think like it's not too far from what I would have done it, I think now. Like, but we could think that with all the songs. Like, I'm sure I'll come back to the last song I did and in like a year's time and think I've sung that very strangely and I would do it completely different now.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? I think what I've had to reassure both of you throughout the process is that I'll get a manic text at like 10 p.m. being like, I've just listened to this and I hate it. Can I change it? Can we do some more? And I'm like, I would not have moved on from the song if I weren't happy with it. Like, I am not one of those people that will just let something slide. As I'm sure we've all had bars where I've gone like, no, we're doing that again. We're going to get this one right. And you did. So it was never going to be, you know, a kind of half-ditch attempt. And I've had to reassure you both of that for the whole thing. Just being like, I really don't like my voice. And I'm like, well, I do, so yeah.
I mean, I've heard the first mix with the band of Still Hurting, and I love it. It sounds so good. Like I'm so excited to hear like what happens with the rest of it, because I just think there's so much more to be gained from like the kind of the fleshed out arrangements that are written for the show, and it just adds another dimension, I think, to the listening experience.
And also, you really do, for Still Hurting especially, like you heard the emotion behind each part, like the breath of each, like that's what I love about listening to like all of it as well.
On my part, I remember the first track that I got through at all was the bass part for Still Hurting. And I put it into the mix. I didn't even mix it, I didn't alter the levels or anything. I just put it in, made sure that it was in time and played it. And I was so emotional.
Listening to some of these tracks back with the full band, like it's such a really cool experience to have the opportunity to work with musicians who are actually really this talented, like because it just sounds so good and so professional. Like
I was literally saying the same to my brother this morning, like I listened back again to the Still Hurting one, and it just, you can hear, like there's moments on the cello you can hear him, like Toby breathing with the part, and it just, I love it so much because it does bring that life and emotion that you just want when you're having that experience. Yo, that is, we all know what that is, don't we, Livy?
Do we?
My one when I recorded with the speaker.
Oh my
And
That is true. That was a big one. That was a big one.
What happened?
basically, I rather than as I had done for the first song and it was all good, like had my headphones in, recording as you should. I, for some odd reason, got really confused because I'd just done filming. You had like the speaker playing so you can lip sync. Decided to record with the music coming out the speaker. So all my recordings, so I done like 20 takes, sent them through. Livy listened to the first one, was like, like did you do all of these with the music playing, like so I can hear it? And I was like, oh, like really?
Oh my god.
You sent these through at ridiculous hours, because we've been fairly nocturnal as well with our recording processes, and I've been like fitting them into the track so that you can film the next day, and I've sent through that take at like 1 a.m. being like, what have I done? what is this, my life? And I got them through at like 9 p.m. started listening to them. I was like, right, okay, let's see where we are. And I hear the music and it's just, my heart sank. Tessie would be like, before I waste my time downloading all of these files, do they all have the piano in the background? Do they?
When I read that message, I was like, how? I just immediately, it was like, I think I was finishing dinner and immediately I was like, okay, going, sorry, bye, I'm gonna go record this, because oh my Christ.
It was fine. It would have been fine, except you were filming the next day, and I'm like,
yeah.
We have no contingency. What about you? Did you have anything?
I mean, aside from all of the takes that you did not hear, I mean, a miracle would happen was a nightmare to record for me personally, just because I would get so lost in it every time, because I was so invested in like the words, like the character, and then I'd be like, wait, I haven't been counting, and I needed to be counting from 4 bars ago to make sure I came in at the right time, and then I just wouldn't. So that was really, really frustrating. And then other than that, it's just like I said this in the last Q&A, but it's just so many words in such a short space of time, and it's like half spoken, half sung, and it's just like a lot to get through. I'm kind of glad I don't have to do that one live in some ways. It feels like a cop-out that I don't, but I think that would be the most stressful one to try and get right. Anyways. I feel like I've personally developed a lot more of the kind of vulnerable sides of my voice, because previously,
I was gonna say the same thing.
Previously I just would force the sound a little bit more in order to make it sound clean and things like that. But I think I've learned with this score in particular to allow myself to have these more vulnerable moments in my voice and allow it to become part of the character, and kind of to work with it and not be afraid of using it as well, because there's a lot of points in this where like Jamie is singing like fairly all out, I would say, and then all of a sudden he just sort of withdraws and goes into like a really high head voice and sort of pulls back a lot. And I don't think I've really sung a lot of music that does that, first of all, but then actually getting to grips with it and using it as a technique and stuff has been really, really fun.
I mean, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. Like, if I was to do like some of the first songs again, like that's why, like when I was going back through and I was thinking like all the things I would change, it's been to do with the things that I've discovered like vocally whilst we've done this, because there's like vocal qualities or techniques that I've really tapped into, in terms of even like my support has got a billion times better since I started rehearsal for this, and which is something I really wanted to do. And like at first I was like, oh, if we had done this in 4th week, I would have had like all of the VAC to like get that ready, and then had the weeks back at and
really interesting learning curve, I think, because we're all learning. I don't know enough about the voice. No, I don't know as much about the voice that I would really want to, in order to properly support people. But along the way, and we've just found new things to do, and it is tapping into those vulnerable qualities that you were saying. Like the amount of times I was just there, like we can just lift this and just make it just sing, I guess, sing. And yeah, so that's been a really fun thing to kind of explore and actually have the time to figure out.
And like I've been less afraid, for example, to like go into my head voice more often, because sometimes I think, oh, that's like kind of a cop out, where actually no, it's not. If it's got emotional purpose, like it's meant to be. And I think this score is so good for actually learning how your voice works. It's gonna expose all the things that maybe you didn't want to see about your voice before, but then you actually realize that they're actually necessary, and you can use them to your advantage. And I felt like I've got to know a lot more about my voice now.
No, it's been really good to see how you guys just kind of just adopted these new techniques and actually just really owned what you were doing, you know. And it is that thing you were saying about people assume that head voice is a cop out, you know. It's like, oh, they couldn't reach that note, and it's not. No, it's such a good technique to change the timbre and the texture of how it's working. And the amount of times that we've gone, yeah, I know you can sing that in belt, but don't. Let's bring it down. Let's do it another way. And it just changes everything. You know, I mean, there are multiple notes to pick up on the score where it does that, but it's just it's really clear.
Even like spending a bit more time thinking about the score and what you can do with it in terms of using different timbres of your voice, different ranges, different techniques, has been a really, really cool experience, because I don't think, from my experience anyway, that there are many like musical scores out there that will test your voice in the same way as this one does. Like Maggie was saying, you just learn so much. Like if there's ever a show you want to do to figure out more about your voice, this I would definitely say is one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't think it's possible to answer that.
No.
Can I factor myself into the mix with the recording the piano tracks for Moving Too Fast? That was a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
All that ending as well.
I think we could argue over these forever, honestly.
We really,
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to fully answer it.
There was a funny moment. This is just about a lyric. But for Goodbye Until Tomorrow, when I was filming it, but obviously it's playing out, it was just before we were going to have lunch.
I know what you're talking about.
I do pizza toast. So I was literally standing by, and I'm like, I will be waiting for you. And my mum says it first, but you really hear my brother say it in the recording. He's like, I've been waiting for my lunch. It's just, I corpsed completely, and it was so annoying because I was like determined that was gonna be my final take as well. And I was just like, well, you'll be waiting even longer for your lunch now, because yeah.
So that has been our little insider knowledge into how we've been approaching the last 5 years. It will be streaming on the 9th of May at 7:30 p.m. You can get your tickets on the 00 website and follow the event page for more behind the scenes info. It's been cool. This has been fun.